to be detailing and looking at the kettlebell clean. This is one of the basic movement patterns that everyone should be learning if you're doing kettlebells. It sets you up for being able to bring that kettlebell into a rack position, which is critical for being able to go into certain squat patterns, but more importantly, getting that kettlebell up overhead with the press, right? If we look at just basic movement patterns, right, pressing is one of the main functional movement patterns, whether it's a vertical or a horizontal. And if you're wanting to build upper body strength and you're trying to go the minimalist route with just a kettlebell or a few pieces of equipment, getting that into the rack position to press is huge. And then if you can get efficient at the clean, you can turn that into a metabolic strength movement in and of itself. Right? So when we're looking at this, this is a single arm swing transition to a vertical position in a catch. One of the big mistakes here is that kettlebell gets away from you and it flops and it bangs into either your chest or your forearm, and that's what we're trying to manage so that that does not happen. So our single arm swing looks something like this. That kettlebell, as I stand vertically, gets pushed away. The transition of going horizontal with that kettlebell's pendulum away from you to then vertical, notice what's the change in my arms? Comes away. If I want to go vertical, I just keep those elbows pinned in. So I'm not really doing a curl, but the moment I pop those hips to stand tall, I'm going to just retract that elbow backwards, almost like I'm doing a row, and the momentum of the kettlebell is just going to lift it. So I don't need to curl it. All I need to do is have good force from the hips and the legs, and then that power is going to be redirected through an elbow pull, and that's going to let it lift up. And then from there, I just have to scoop underneath. And that scoop is, as I do this, I have to let my grip go a little bit so that kettlebell can naturally transition. As it transitions over, I'm going to punch through. And as I do this motion, that guides the kettlebell into the forearm as opposed to letting it wait and then slam, okay? So a lot of steps to think about, so we break it down. We're gonna start with what they call the gunslinger, or just that pull. So if I'm doing my swing, now I'm gonna pin elbow, and you see how that kettlebell starts to float. Now I'm not using a lot of power, and there will be a little pull depending on the size of the weight to get it up higher. But as I'm flowing, if I'm not braking on this and I just pop and pull, it just floats, right? Especially with the weight that I'm using, right? If it's heavier, yeah, I'm gonna need to put a little bit more muscle into it, not only from the legs, but also from the arm, right? So here's the swing, pop. So you can see that arm has to pull a little harder. And that pull, though, it's not necessarily up. Maybe a little bit of a up and back. But as I pull, I'm trying to yank here backwards so that that power can then translate up. And then the moment that starts to float, then I come back through and punch. Okay, one more time here, lighter, swing, pull back, punch. Punch. Okay, now in this position, I'm going to bring it in a little bit. Wrist is straight. You can have a clasped hand, but I kind of stay somewhat open until I'm ready to press or move, then I'm going to grab it. That helps fight the fatigue of the forearms that naturally comes with kettlebell work. When I'm unracking, I personally like to throw it away. If I just drop it, the momentum's going down. If I toss it, the moment I re-engage, now it's going to turn back into my pendulum swing, which is helpful for my swing, right? If I drop it straight down, now I really have to pull it in and fight that momentum going down, and I tend to find that it's a little bit more back-friendly and a little bit easier to get your rhythm. This is your kettlebell clean. One of the basic movement patterns you need to understand if you're doing kettlebells. Takes practice, but just rep after rep, it will get better. Oftentimes, the issues we're seeing is that grip is too tight in that transition, and that is what's forcing that kettlebell to slam into you, and or you're not pulling back and that kettlebell gets away, and then you're trying to, literally grab it out of the air and pull it back into you. So right when you pop, change that elbow direction backwards, and now it just floats in front of you. Catch it, cradle it, and sit in the pocket.